Hello and welcome back to the show. So I'm super excited for today's episode because I am joined here by not only a really special guest, but also a great friend of mine, and that is Michael Be Someone on Instagram. So you can actually find his Instagram handle by looking up Michael Be Someone. And his story is that he actually retired from corporate America, actually quite a high-paying job from what I've heard, uh, with only three single-family property. So he was able to achieve financial freedom with only three single family properties. And we're going to be talking all about his journey as an investor and also as an investor agent on today's show. But other than that, Michael, welcome to the show. I am super excited to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Kobe. Um, I started in corporate America. Actually, I started with a blue collar job, kind of a field level guy in oil and gas, and worked my way up to management role later in telecom. And at that time, it started to dawn on me that I can't rely on a paycheck forever, that I'm not really in control of my life. I work for a company that when I started had about 180 million a year in revenue, and we scaled to about 1.1 billion in revenue and went public. And I saw that the proceeds of that were not distributed as promised for years and years. And so I realized that you're never really gonna own anything. You're never gonna be in control of your life with a job. And so while I was working, I started getting interested in real estate investing, podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube, like everybody does. And I started with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where everybody starts, that purple Bible. It's on the shelf behind me here. And I started with house hacking, and a lot of people start with house hacking by looking for a duplex, triplex, or fourplex because a conventional loan, most people don't realize the same loan that you get on your home is good for two, three, 4 units. After 4 units, they consider it commercial real estate, so the loan's a little different. But under 4 units, you can use a conventional loan, FHA, and other typical loan products. And so I was intrigued by this idea of house hacking because I wanted to subsidize my cost of living so I could put more money into investments and retire faster. So my wife and we had just got married. We were renting, and I told her about this house hacking idea, and I'm so thankful to have the right woman in my life because she was all in. She was all in. And we actually gave up looking for a duplex, triplex, or fourplex because we had some other stuff going on in our life and we didn't have a ton of time. And so we ended up looking at another version of house hacking where you rent out by the room. And so we found a house with a lot of bedrooms. And as we were looking at homes, we knew in our mind, like, how many people can we rent out these rooms to? What part of the house are we going to be in? What part of the house are they going to be in? And so we ended up buying a house with where the price point and the number of bedrooms you could rent out kind of hit an equilibrium. And our goal was just to subsidize our cost of living. So we ended up buying a home in an older community in the older part of town, in Houston, and we rented out by the room. And our goal was just to cover, like, subsidize our cost of living. Um, However, through the magic of how real estate works, we ended up living for free. And the rents go up over time, as they all do, right? And then your loan is being paid down over time, and the property is appreciating, usually. And what ended up happening is we're living for free. And so, um, if you take a look at your budget, your personal budget today, and you look at the costs of, like, if you make $100 a month, where does that go? Most Americans, like 50, 60, 70, 80% of that goes to housing and transportation. And so we paid off our cars. We're living for free. Um, and you would not believe how much a runway you have, financial runway you have. Scott Trench from Bigger Pockets wrote a book where he talks about financial runway. and how many months you can stop working and still be able to live. And so we measure those months based on a cost of living. So if you're spending $10,000 a month on your lifestyle, you got to have a lot of financial runway. But if your cost of living is at or near zero, right? Um, it doesn't take a whole lot of money for you to consider yourself real estate retired. And so I heard somebody speaking and they said they called it level one financial freedom when income from real estate covers your bills, your mortgage, your car note, whatever you've got going on in your life, your cell phone, your food, your utilities. They called it level one financial freedom. And I didn't hear that till years after the house hack. And I'm like, oh, I achieved level one financial freedom in my first property, technically. But what that allowed me to do, that first house hack allowed me to pay my cars off, um, me and my wife's car, two cars, and that allowed us to steamroll and just pile cash. Which, I mean, for me, it wasn't a lot of money, but it felt like a lot of money. Um, and you were able to steamroll cash into going to do single family investing using the BRRRR method. For any of you interested, Brandon Turner and David Green from Bigger Pockets wrote books about the BRRRR method. And um, I started buying single family rentals while I was living in a house hack. And I loved it because the the narrative we get on social media or the news of a big evil real estate investor living high on a hill off the backs of the poor and middle class was not the case. We lived in an older community. It probably didn't have the safest rating when you looked it up on like the crime score and the school scorecard, but we were buying single family homes in Katy, which is a suburb west of Houston. And so it was kind of funny that our tenants, our residents, the people renting from us had nicer cars than us because we paid off our old cars. We drive like 12-year-old cars. They had nicer houses than us. And they didn't hear gunshots at night in the neighborhood. And so it was definitely the opposite of what you would think an evil landlord or real estate investor was. And so eventually, after we were living for free in a house hack, the next goal was, well, wouldn't it be nice to live on our own? Um, and so when we got to three properties, we realized, well, we can now have a house and the free cash flow from the three other properties will pay for our cost of living. And so we actually bought a house intending for it to be a rental. And we started doing the math and we're like, no, well, we're just going to move into this one. And it's the house that I'm in right now. I'm still in now. And it's also funny when you buy stuff at the right price, off market, deeply discounted stuff. My mortgage is almost half of what my neighbors are around me. And so moving in to where I'm at now and the cash flow from the other properties and turning the old house hack into just a traditional long-term rental allowed me to then I realized, hey, I'm what the kids call level one financial freedom. Um, and that led me to realize that I didn't need my corporate job anymore. And I was 100% travel. So Monday through Friday, I was in a different city every week. Um, I was only in Houston on weekends and holidays. And my wife was in a master's program at the time. And she told me I could do whatever I want while she's in school and continue to work this job. But when she finishes school, I've got to come home. And so we finally realized it was just made more sense for me to come home and go full time into real estate. The things I was able to do part time um, while working full time have been amazing. So we're excited to see what it would be like if I didn't have a job. And so that led me to get licensed as an agent. And actually, my private lender at the time, who was funding a lot of my properties, he knew Chris Bounds, and Chris Bounds runs the invested agents team for EXP. And when I got licensed, he had also done business with Chris in the past, and he introduced us. And that's how you and I met, Kobe, and we're on the same team. And when I saw the opportunity at EXP with RevShare and it kind of being like the Amazon of brokerages, I stopped looking for other brokerages. I joined immediately and I met the team. And everyone on the team has been amazing. Connor Steinbrook of the Wolfpack, Benjamin Deal, you're the content. You are just crushing it, man, with the content. And it's just really it's brought like a new, just new motivation, stimulation. Everyone on the team has like different ideas of which direction you can go. Everyone's so niched down in the team and they're just crushing it. And I love being a part of the community.
Yeah, well, we love having you. So it's because of people like you, right? Like you mentioned, as far as, content that I can produce, because a lot of my content, what people don't realize, is on the shoulders of all these great guests that I've had over the weeks, right? Over the years now, if you think about it. But so I'd love to talk a little bit more about kind of your journey as an investor, right? So you guys were able to basically live for free in your first house hack, and then actually take the money that you were then able to save and reinvest it back into real estate in order to grow your wealth and finally just now be able to retire and actually go full time into real estate. So do you think this is a I'm gonna say it's an easy process. It definitely wasn't easy listening to kind of the way that you guys are living and kind of a lot of what it took, but it's not a complicated process, I would say. I think this is somebody that anybody who's looking into investing in a real estate could follow a similar path. But a lot of people don't, right? So do you think it's just a discipline issue? You guys are just able to have more discipline in order to create basically a three-step process like that to achieve financial freedom?
Yeah, discipline wasn't really an issue in the beginning. It actually became one later. I think where the difficulty was knowing where to get started for us. And when I talk to other people about house hacking or about single family real estate investing, they just don't understand the process to go out there and do it. And what I would tell people to start is understand what your DTI is, your debt to income ratio. And you can look up ways to calculate it, but in the simplest form, you can take the minimum payment of all of your debt servicing. So not your credit card balance, but the minimum payment on your credit card, not your student loan balance, but the minimum payment on your student loan, not the balance of your car note or car payment, but the minimum payment on your car payment. And if you take all of that and total it, and then you look at your monthly income, and let's say you earn $100 a month, and all of your debt servicing adds up to $50 a month, well, you have a 50% DTI. And so nobody taught me that in school. I don't think they teach that. Maybe they're getting better about it now, but they don't teach you that kind of stuff in school. And so because I was always kind of debt adverse, and I never had a belief that a job was going to last. I'm going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but one of my first jobs was in oil and gas, and you work 6, 7 days a week outdoors. You make good money, but we were constantly looking down the barrel of a layoff. And so we were actually building land-based rigs, drilling rigs. And so we knew it took about 9 months to make a drilling rig. So unless we signed another contract, we would get laid off for a few months, and then we would get brought back when there was more work. And so I just never felt that I could get payments on things other than a car because you need a car. And I never felt that I should lever up on personal debt because it would never stick around. Like whatever my income sources was very uh it wasn't reliable. And so when I meet people out in the world, a lot of them have 4-year degrees, which I don't. I don't have a college degree. And um they're like very comfortable. They've consistently had an income that slowly rose over their career, and so they've consistently stacked up more and more debt. And I think that's the trap a lot of people get into because someone who's young, just starting in their career, we need to talk about house hacking. You need to Google it, watch YouTube videos, follow me, find my YouTube channel. It's Michael B. Someone. We need to talk about house hacking, but it's harder to turn the ship around once somebody is levered up. And I I kind of realized how the system worked when I got a pre-approval to buy my first house. And I think they pre-approved me for like 400 grand or 450. I think it was $400,000. And then I told the agent I was working with at the time because I wasn't licensed yet. I said, I want a house for about 100 grand. And listening to this today in 2024, there's not a lot of $100,000 houses left in Texas. There might be in some other markets, but harder to find here. And I knew that wherever I started, I was going to get drug up a little bit on the price. So I was like 100, 150, whatever. And I show the pre-approval letter to the agent and they say, well, let me show you. I'll send you stuff for 100, 150, 200,000, but let me show you what you could be living like. And she started sending me, I think it was a $425,000 homes. And I said, my pre-approval is only for 400,000. What are you doing? She's like, well, sometimes we can message the lender and they can rerun the numbers and maybe they could stretch it to 425. And I could tell the way that was delivered to me is like, I thought that was good news. But for me, that was like terrifying because I understood my debt to income ratio and I understood what I wanted to do with it. And I understand there's a cutoff. And so if I would have fell for that and went and bought the biggest, best house that I could with my budget, I would not have been able to go on and buy other houses because the debt to income ratio, there's an adjustment they make on it. So we talked about if all of your debt is $50 a month, you make $100 a month, you have a 50% DTI. However, when you buy your personal home, that's how it's calculated, or when you buy anything else. But when you buy something that has income, that's an income producing property, like a house hack, or you buy a single family home as a rental, when you do that, they calculate your DTI, but then they adjust for the income that that house is bringing. So to make it to help everybody understand, if you're paying $1,000 a month mortgage payment on a rental property, and then you have a signed lease and bank account statement showing that someone is renting the home and depositing money in your bank account, your mortgage payment's 1,000, but you're renting it out for 1,000. So they'll give you 75% of that in your DTI calculations. So they'll wash that out. So now you're really only accounting for $250 on your DTI, on your debt to income ratio. So your DTI goes up a little bit. Now, that's just an example. How it worked out for me, for example, is I had $1,000 a month of debt service in the new mortgage that I was getting, but it was more like 1,250 or 13 or $1,400 a month. And so when you do 75% of that, it washed out. So I bought a house one time and my DTI went up 1%. And I bought another house and my DTI went up 0%. And so the guidelines for conventional financing change all the time. So you need to check with a lender, which, we all know lenders we can connect you with, but you need to check with a lender. But at that time, I believe it was 45%. It was somewhere between 35 and 45%. And they have two different DTI numbers, one for your primary residence and one for a rental property. And so the guidelines for the rental property were a little more strict because it's a little more risky for the lender. And so I remember like figuring out what my DTI was, tracking it, and then every time I was looking at a house that I would buy, I would figure out, calculate what my DTI would be, my debt to income ratio if I purchased it, because whatever the lending guidelines are at that time when you hit that cap, which it might have been 45% at that time for single family homes as rental properties. Once you hit that, they cut you off. You're done. There are other lending products, for example, a DSCR, debt service coverage ratio, where you can qualify without your personal income being considered or your personal DTI being involved. But I just knew that they allow you to get up to 10 mortgages before they cut you off. Or if your debt to income ratio or if your credit score gets messed up, they cut you off. And so my goal was to get as close to 10 as I could before they stopped. Um, and so when I learned that, I'm like, this is the most powerful thing that anybody's ever taught me. They never taught me this in math. They never taught me this in school. They never taught me this when I file my taxes. And I'll just never forget how the objective of both the lender and the agent that I first spoke to was, let's use as much of your DTI as possible for a primary residence for your home that would produce no money. And if I had went for that, I would not have been able to quit my W-2 job. I would not be able to become financially free today. And so, for young people, or for people that haven't bought a house yet, or for anyone who's wanting to change their trajectory and get involved in house hacking or buying single family rentals, I just want to get the message out about that: is know what your DTI is, track it, control your cost of living. If possible, pay your cars off and don't buy new ones. We are each driving 12, 13-year-old cars that we just keep fixing, and instead of buying a new car, and keep your debt under control. Because what I found, Kobe, is that the debt was the thing that was driving the people around me at work. Their home debt, their car debt, their credit card debt, their student loans. Nobody around me, I was frustrated because my boss and my boss's boss, we were all really close. We were a really tight-knit team. They were making significantly higher income than me, and they were living paycheck to paycheck. I met someone who makes $250,000 a year and lives paycheck to paycheck. And I was able to reverse engineer this process and discover, just through chatting with them, nobody starts with that kind of income out of college or out of high school, but they slowly got more money over the years, and so they slowly added more debt over the years. The more they made, the more they spent. And now they were all in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they didn't see any way out of it other than working until they expire. And while when I first got in corporate America, I wanted to be just like these people. But once I got a financial education and I understood how finances truly work, personal finance, real estate investing, I understood that I didn't want to be like them. Like, the idea of them taking a couple months off to travel the world was not in the calculations for them. It was for me. I took several months off, and me and my wife traveled across Asia to several countries. And when I saw how they were living, they had very nice houses, very nice cars, all the newest gadgets and everything in their home, but they weren't free. They were not free. They had to show up to work every day to continue to service the debt. And so it felt to me like debt was their master, and it kept them planted right in their W-2 corporate jobs. Whereas the path that I chose is debt is my friend. Debt is an asset. If I take on $1,000 of debt, it's because it's going to make me 1,200 or $1,300, for example. And so for me, debt was my friend, and I want all the debt I can get. I'm not doing the Dave Ramsey method here. I want to be millions and millions of dollars in debt, the right kind of debt.
So that in itself, man, I think that takes a lot of discipline, right? That's what a lot of people are experiencing today is they will make a certain amount of money and then they'll spend just as much or maybe even a little bit more than that. And then that's how they fall into that trap. And you're right, it's really hard to get out of that once you are 5, 10, 20 years deep into a situation like that because you then have to work backwards or you have to get out of that trap first before you can even start thinking about making money, making passive residual income in real estate because now it's just about how do I keep the lights on at home and make sure that if I do get fired tomorrow, I don't just go on the street and have to be homeless. So that's a big part of that. I think it's so important that you share something as far as your own story and kind of what you've seen from other people as well, because that's not necessarily what's talked about a lot in the real estate industry, where everything just seems very flashy and everybody's making a ton of money and it's all good. But there's the opposite side of that, which is, hey, here's what's going to happen to the majority of people if you're not listening or taking any advice like this, which is manage your debt and make sure that you're leveraging debt in a way where it's actually going to actually benefit you in order to become financially free, like yourself. So, something wanted to dig a little bit deeper into was, you decided to go with the Burr method, right? As far as, after your house hack, that was the next step as far as growing your wealth and growing your real estate portfolio. So is there a specific reason why you went with the Burr method? Is that something that is still applicable today? Or is that just something that you kind of came across at the time that made the most sense for you in your situation? And, that's what you went with.
Yeah, I like the Burr method because it allows you to recycle your capital over and over again. Um, I was watching a lot of Bigger Pockets at the time. I was buying their books. I've got signed copies of most of the Bigger Pockets guys' books on this shelf behind me here. And I was going to conferences, and Burr method was what everybody was talking about 2016, 2017, whenever I got my 2018, whenever I got into real estate. However, Burr method is more difficult today here in Houston, but when you pull the data, you can see people are still doing it. And I still know people. I'm in several real estate groups. They're still doing it today. It's a little more difficult with interest rates, taxes, and insurance, but people are still doing it. And I like the Burr method because you capture equity on day one. You're getting paid to sign the dotted line. When you buy the property, you got paid. I'm not a fan of speculation or buying things and paying the wrong price and then holding them forever to hope that maybe one day you make some money. Look, real estate goes up. You can look at it in a chart. You can go look going back to the 1950s, real estate goes up over time. However, I wasn't interested in paying full price for anything. I know some people who paid full price for turnkey single family homes and they've made some money. However, what attracted me to the Burr method was one, recycling my capital over and over again. Um, and two, because when you do the Burr method and you do it correctly, you buy big chunks of equity day one.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. So that's, people hear about the Burr method, right? You can recycle cash, right? You can actually go in and with the same amount of cash buy one property and then refinance it out and then actually go in to a different property. So it actually allows you to do more with not as much if you want to think about it that way. So you're actually able to leverage whatever it is that you have in a way that actually allows you to scale a little bit faster. And I've had a lot of guests on the show in the past as well to talk about the Burr method and that's how they started out. That's like the first property was buying a rundown property through the Burr method, and moving forward that way. So you started out that with house hacking, then you moved into Burr method. So what are you currently doing now? You're full time in real estate. I know you're an agent. You have your real estate license, but on the investing side, what is your path forward now? Is it still the Burr method? Is it more house hacks? I can't imagine it can't be like that, right? But what are you moving into now as far as your niche, your sector?
Well, I do know some people that are building out portfolios of just house hacks. They're buying houses to rent out by the room or buying duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, and they're having success with that. But I'm following what I believe to be the natural evolution of a real estate investor. Started with house hacking, moved into the Burr method with single family, now moving into multifamily. Um, I've been mentored and trained by a very large group here in Houston, and they have been taking me through all the phases of learning. I've been walking properties before acquisition. I've been doing lease audits. I've been walking units with people. And I'm starting to realize that I want to take all my problems and put it under one roof. And I want to harvest the economy of scale on multifamily. So, am I going to buy a 20 unit, a 60 unit, an 80 unit? That's what I'm trying to look at right now. And I want to tell everyone who's listening who, if they hear the word 60 unit, 80 unit, 100 unit apartment complex, that sounds scary to them. Because if you were talking to me in 2017, 2018, I would tune out immediately. But I can tell you that it just takes a few years to jump from step one to step two to step three, the house hack, the Burr method, then multifamily. In no time at all, you're realizing that you're doing a different kind of calculation. So when we first buy real estate, we do an ROI calculation. We measure how much money comes out of our pocket versus how much money comes back into our pocket every month or every year. And when I went through the phase that all real estate investors start with in the beginning, they say, I'm going to pay this mortgage off. I'm going to keep this house forever. When I retire, it's going to be worth X based on standard appreciation. And then you start doing an ROE calculation. And so what happens is your return on equity is different. So if you have $100,000 of equity in a property, for example, you start calculating, well, what could I do if I sold that, got that money out? Could I buy two houses, three houses, four houses, five houses, depending on my market and how aggressive I am? So why am I leaving all this debt equity trapped in these houses? And so when I started doing my ROE calculations, I realized it was time to sell. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been selling my single family properties. I have one vacant right now that's about to be listed. We just got the residents and the tenants out of there. And when you start leveling up your knowledge and the people that you're around, because for me, it's been all about my network and my community EXP, my community at the Wolfpack with Connor Steinbrook, my community at Invested Agents with Chris Bounds and the team and Benjamin Deal and all of the hard hitters. And in addition to that, it's been my multifamily community here in Houston. It's been in my single family community through Bigger Pockets. Um, when you look at the community around you, they raise your financial thermostat. And so I didn't even know if I could do the BRRRR method when I first started house hacking. And then when I'm doing the BRRRR method, I'm like, multifamily, I don't know, that's kind of sounds scary. But when you're around people and you see it happening every day, you raise your financial thermostat. So as I was liquidating properties, I thought to myself, I'm just going to go buy more houses. Easy peasy, right? Sell these houses, go buy five or 10 more. But then you start leveling up your knowledge, leveling up your financial thermostat, and leveling up the people around you, and you start to realize that there are other options that make more sense. Um, just like for a lot of people that I've met that are in sales roles outside of real estate, and I try to tell them it might make more sense for you to get your real estate license and come sell houses. The checks are way larger, the clientele is different, and it's a different lifestyle. And so if what I'm saying sounds scary to you and sounds like you can't do it, um, you need to ask yourself, what are you missing that makes it make sense? Because I wasn't born with any unique skills or innate abilities. I didn't even graduate college. Kobe certainly wasn't, right? There's nothing special about him, but we leveled up who we were around and we went through training and we went through mastermind calls, we went through mentorship and we got around people just like us that were doing what we're doing and we realized it's not that scary. And so not everybody should go to multifamily, right? And I meet people that they want to do single family or multifamily and I ask them, what are you doing with your time? Like, what are you doing with your money? And I realize some of them need to go do single family. Some of them need to go be an agent. Some of them need to do both. And some of them want to invest in real estate. And we've learned that they don't have the time or the energy, or they have a great job. They love what they're doing. And so some of those people have became private lenders, right? And that's how I've found a lot of private money like that. And so I'd like to build like a little flow chart to help people understand. Do I need to be an agent, single family, house hack, multifamily, private lending, flipping, wholesaling, whatever it is people need to do. But how I've been handling it so far is that people have been messaging me through Instagram or getting on my calendar, and I've been trying to guide them, for free in which direction that they should go. But I wouldn't be here where I'm at today doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for my community and the people around me. So if any of this sounds like something that you can't wrap your head around, you're just not hanging out with the right people.
Yeah. And I know it's the community aspect is huge for you. I've heard you talk multiple times on our team's mastermind calls about how important it is, right, of who you surround yourself with. And that actually creates, I remember you talking about that creates who your identity is, right? Because around certain people, you are somebody else to that group of people. But when you're around a community of successful agents or investors, you're a different person to them, right? Than maybe like your childhood friend or your cousin or somebody in your family or something like that. So it is really important who you surround yourself with and the time that you spend with the right people.
Yeah, that's interesting you brought that up, Kobe. Thank you for that. I can speak on that for a little bit. So, they've done studies on people's net worth and their background information, and by the time they're retiring or passing away, they look at the net worth of the individual, and then they compared it to the net worth of the five people they spent the most time with. And it turns out that they were about the median, right in the middle, the average of the top five people they spent their most time with. So your network does matter. But what, I'm telling people that come to me is that it is difficult to escape. Society has a label for you. Your friends, your family, they all have this idea of who you were, not who you are or where you're going. And so I always encourage people, get out of your hometown, like change your social circle, change who's around you, because I have to tell people this all the time that get discouraged. Like if you go, like I told my parents about real estate investing when I started 5, 6, 7 years ago, whatever it was now, and they couldn't wrap their head around it because in their mind, I'm still a little baby with a diaper full of poopy. And if you talk to your middle school or high school friends, they just remember that time you face planted in the gym. That's who you are to them. You could be the CEO of a $1 billion publicly traded company, but when you go home, you're still everybody's brother, sister, son, daughter. So in order for me to believe who I was becoming, I had to change who I'm around. So when I go to Invested Agent or Wolfpack Mastermind, I am a valuable member of the team. I am an agent. When I go to my single family meetups, I'm an accomplished investor. And when I go to my multifamily meetups, I'm a budding multifamily investor. And so, in order for you to change who you are and who you perceive yourself to be, you have to change your environment. You have to change your social circle. And so, I would challenge everybody to think about the top five people you spend the most time with, other than your spouse or your partner, other than your coworkers. Just think about who you're spending your time with. Think about what you have in common with them and think about where they're going in 5 or 10 years and think about where they were 5 years ago and where you were 5 years ago. Do you see any similarities? Are you tracking with them? So while, I don't burn any social bridges and I stay in contact with people, the amount that my time has been spent with different people on a different trajectory and we're changing our future by changing our present. The time that we spend with people changes where we're going in the future. And if I could just go back and tell my old self that I couldn't imagine where I would be today if I didn't wait to start understanding that I could be something more than what my friends, family, and coworkers labeled me to be.
Yeah, that's very powerful, man. I'm glad you shared that because that's what I felt as well, and I think that's what a lot of people and I was blessed and I still am that the people around me don't label me quite as much as I guess a lot of other people have experienced in their life as far as their friends and their former social circles have done so. But it definitely is a different feeling, right? When you are at a local event or when you are at, like, for me, like EXPCon event, right? Where you're around these people making millions of dollars in commissions a year. Like literally they're doing, these are icon agents, right? At EXP. These are people making $1 million or more a year in their commissions. And I'm being treated as an equal to these people. It doesn't dawn upon you how important that is until you look back maybe a little bit later after the event. Because during that time, they're making you feel like you're part of that group. You're part of these people. You belong in that circle. And that's what you get with, just a little plug, right? That's what you get with our group, right? With our team. If you're an agent, right? If you're looking for the place to hang your license or a place to join. That's what we get here with our group. So but Michael, man, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you sharing. all the value that you've shared. I think it was a wonderful episode. I think a lot of people are going to get a ton of value from this, and you should be doing a lot more content, man. It's just my take. I think you got quite a bit of information and knowledge to share with people. So for those people who are watching this or listening to this that do want to follow you, that do want to know more about what you're doing and the content that I'm sure you're going to be putting out in the future, where can they find you? What are some of the best places that they can actually find you on social?
Yeah, Michael B. Someone on Instagram, message me and send me a DM that says make more content, please. I need encouragement. There's also a link to get on my Calendarly if you want to talk. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram. You can see what we're doing in our daily life and come walk some projects and see what we're getting into.
Yeah, awesome. We'll make sure to link that in the description, the show notes down below so that people can find you. But other than that, man, is there any last advice, any last pieces of tips, value, knowledge you want to leave with us before we let you go today?
Don't wait, participate.
Awesome. Love it, man. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next show. Take care. Bye.
Bye.